Welcome to Eternal Focus, daily devotions to inspire your walk with God. Fan into flame the gift of God. For this reason, I remind you to fan into flame the gift of God, which is in you through the laying on of my hands. For the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline. 2 Timothy chapter 1, verses 6-7, New International Version. Have you ever felt like you're merely wandering through life? Perhaps you're surviving, going through the motions but not living with purpose or fulfillment. Maybe you've experienced moments of burnout, where your inner fire feels more like embers, barely glowing. The potential within you remains untapped, waiting to be reignited. If that resonates with you, then you're in good company. Moses, one of the greatest leaders in history, must have felt many of these same struggles. After fleeing Egypt in fear, Moses spent years in Midian, living a quiet life as a shepherd. Once a prince in Pharaoh's court, now he was tending sheep that weren't even his own, far from the glory or purpose he might have imagined for himself. Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the far side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. So Moses thought, I will go over and see this strange sight, why the bush does not burn up. When the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called to him from within the bush, Moses, Moses. And Moses said, Here I am. Do not come any closer, God said. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. Then he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. At this, Moses hid his face, because he was afraid to look at God. The Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the home of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. And now the cry of the Israelites has reached me, and I have seen the way the Egyptians are oppressing them. So now go, I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people the Israelites out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? And God said, I will be with you. And this will be the sign to you that it is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on this mountain. Moses said to God, Suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, The God of your fathers has sent me to you. And they ask me, What is his name? Then what shall I tell them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. This is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you. God also said to Moses, Say to the Israelites, The Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, the name you shall call me from generation to generation. Exodus 3, 1-15. Moses had made mistakes. He had acted in anger, killing an Egyptian taskmaster, and his impulsive act drove him into hiding. In the wilderness, he wasn't just running from Egypt, he was running from himself, his failures, his fears, and the calling he couldn't quite escape. Sound familiar? But then came the moment that changed everything, the burning bush. In this miraculous encounter, God spoke to Moses, calling him not to settle for a life of obscurity and regret, but to step into the extraordinary purpose for which he was created. God didn't reprimand Moses for his past, or disqualify him for his mistakes. Instead, he reminded Moses of his power, his presence, and his promise. Through the fire that did not consume, God showed Moses that his calling would not burn him out, but would light him up. Where Moses once acted in his own strength and failed, now he would be empowered by God to accomplish what seemed impossible, leading an entire nation out of slavery into freedom. Moses felt unworthy, inadequate, and overwhelmed. He doubted his ability to speak, his authority to lead, and even the possibility of success. But God reassured him, I will be with you. Exodus 3:12. This simple yet profound promise made all the difference. It wasn't about Moses' qualifications, it was about God's sufficiency. Like Moses, we often resist the calling on our lives. We delay, doubt, or hide behind excuses. We let fear, guilt, or past failures hold us back. We carry burdens we were never meant to bear alone, and in doing so, we lose sight of the fire God has placed within us. But here's the truth. The same Spirit that empowered Moses is available to us today. The Spirit of God does not make us timid or afraid, but fills us with power, love, and self-discipline. When we lean into His presence, He reignites our passion, restores our hope, and renews our strength. What does that look like practically? It starts with surrender, laying down the guilt of the past, the fear of the future, and the desire to control everything in our own strength. It's about making space for God to work in us and through us, trusting that He knows what He's doing even when we don't. When we fan into flame the gift of God within us, we stop wandering aimlessly and start walking purposefully. We begin to see our challenges not as obstacles, but as opportunities for God to demonstrate His power. We trade burnout for the kind of fire that energizes and sustains us. Moses' story didn't end with the burning bush. It was only the beginning. Through obedience and faith, he led the Israelites out of Egypt, across the Red Sea, and toward the Promised Land. But it all started with a single step, a decision to trust the God who called him. You and I have that same choice today. We can stay stuck in a cycle of wandering and wondering, or we can step into the life God has prepared for us. We can allow the Spirit to fan into flame the gifts, dreams, and potential He has placed within us. When Moses returned to the very mountain where he first encountered God, it wasn't as a broken man in hiding. It was as a leader who had witnessed the faithfulness of God every step of the way. His journey reminds us that no matter how far we've wandered, we can always come back to the fire. Take some time to reflect. What in your life is draining your fire or leaving you feeling burned out? Are there areas where fear, shame, or guilt are holding you back? What steps can you take today to fan into flame the gifts and calling God has placed in you? Remember, the fire of God's presence doesn't burn you out, it builds you up. With His power, love, and self-discipline, you can rise from the ashes of doubt and step boldly into the life He has called you to live. Stop wandering, start winning. Let the fire within you burn brightly, and watch as God does immeasurably more than you could ever ask or imagine. Thank you for joining me today in Eternal Focus, devotions to inspire your walk with God.